Worlds Beyond with Cam and Ron is back, and we are glad you are here.
Welcome back, guys. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. And as always, before we dive in, I'd just like to say if you enjoy our content, we'd love for you to give us a like and follow on our Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it now, at worldsb_podcast, and a like or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Definitely means the world to us. Thanks again for tuning in.
Yes, we appreciate that very much. And now on to The Marvels. Just came out. We just passed the second weekend, and a lot going on with this film, swirling around the film itself. The reaction has been mixed. The Rotten Tomatoes score has been mixed, although ended up being very solid. I think the critic score is 62 and the audience score is up in the 80s. So the overall reaction to it has been positive. There's a lot of folks, complaining about the things that they complain about. I overall thought it was really enjoyable. I won't say it's in the top tier of my Marvel films. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever, but I had a smile on my face through the whole movie. I enjoyed it. And it was just one of those sort of mid-level, if we think back to, it doesn't seem that long ago, but the heyday of the MCU and sort of the mid-2010s, it was like an Ant-Man or a Doctor Strange, or definitely kind of fell in that level. Iron Man 3, I would say probably, I wouldn't rate it as highly as I would rate those films, but like it just fell in that sort of, this was just a mid-level solid Marvel adventure. I enjoyed it more than Captain Marvel, I will say. So yeah, I'll just pause there. That was my initial reaction.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think this movie is really in a bad spot in terms of the kind of societal or cultural outlook at the MCU right now, because it really does address some issues that people have been bringing up about the MCU for the past few years. You'd think based on some people's reaction to it, and especially the box office, I think we're approaching bomb levels. Yeah. It's really not doing very well at the box office. But if you really actually step back and look at it, it's really not any worse. And in some ways, it's better than, some of those later mid-2010s Marvel movies. It's just kind of like Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, and even Captain Marvel.
Right.
It's just very solidly made, not mind-blowing, not as good as the best of the MCU. But I do think people are being a little bit unfair to this one, not for any reason other than that it's just the latest Marvel movie, and the drama surrounding it is really drumming up people coming out and just saying like, the MCU is dead, this is the final death nail for the MCU kind of thing, when really it's not. And it actually does address a lot of issues, like I said. In particular, I thought the CGI was very good. The fight scenes were really well choreographed, and overall, and it's short too. I think a lot of people are kind of getting sick of these 2.5 hour runtime movies. I mean, Wakanda Forever was almost 3 hours. Those three elements, I think, they purposefully kind of focused on to try to quell some of that criticism. I just think this movie landed at the exact wrong time, and it's become kind of a scapegoat in a lot of ways for the growing descent of the MCU and superhero movies in general. But yeah, if you step back and you really just go into it expecting a fairly average, well-made, fun MCU movie, I'd say it absolutely lives up to that. And in many ways, I thought it was more fun than some of the recent outings. As much as I loved Wakanda Forever, I would say this felt a lot more just fun and breezy and lighthearted than that movie. So for that reason, I liked it.
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I really liked. But that was almost funeral dirge, serious and heavy. Right. Wakanda Forever, I enjoyed it. I remember really enjoying it in the moment. I don't think I've gone back and watched that one again yet, but it was very long and drawn out.
And serious.
Yep. And obviously Quantumania was just kind of a dud. And, Thor Love and Thunder was kind of, just kind of a mess. Not, had a few good moments, but overall was not that great. This movie is definitely way better than Thor Love and Thunder or Quantumania. And again, it moves away from some of the fatigue elements that films like Doctor Strange and Wakanda Forever had. So yeah, it's just that perfect. And I love the runtime. It almost has that like horror movie runtime of just like an hour and 45 minutes. And even, like we said, as much as we loved Across the Spider-Verse, that was...
Oh, right, yeah, that was almost 3 hours,
that was very long. Even though I can't wait for the sequel to it, it was long. So it was great.
Well, I guess I should say that I'm in kind of a weird, maybe minority in that I loved both Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel. I think especially Captain Marvel, there was a lot of elements to it. Fury and bringing back Coulson was a great move, and kind of fleshed out some of that early MCU timeline that we haven't seen. And I still really liked Miss Marvel. Obviously there's a couple huge problems with it, but overall I thought it was a fun kind of teen throwback teen superhero series. And so I was really looking forward to this, and I'd say it delivered. I love all three characters. They had great chemistry together. I think they really did a lot to improve on how kind of weirdly serious Captain Marvel was in her first film. She was a lot more lighthearted and quippy. Obviously, Iman Vellani is incredible as Kamala Khan. She really just embodies the character so well and has this great, just bubbly personality. And I really, even though she was kind of maybe the weaker link, Monica Rambeau, she stood out, and I liked her kind of arc in WandaVision, so it was interesting to bring her in as well. And then just everything they did with the body switching and the action kind of around that, and the drama, and just kind of hilarious reactions from the different kind of, whether it be Kamala's family or Nick Fury working with Captain Marvel. They just brought out a lot of that classic MCU humor that didn't feel too out of place. And yeah, I just think it was very well made. The action scenes were well shot, and there was a lot of great kind of spectacle CGI elements to it. I just really enjoyed it overall, and I do think it's getting a little bit unfairly kind of bashed just based on the current climate.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. There's definitely a lot of people that haven't even seen it that are bashing it. So yeah, I will say the one element of it that people were saying they were going to have a hard time with was how they're pulling. Captain Marvel obviously had her origin film, and she was in Endgame, so that was well established. And they were like, okay, well, how are you going to get people who haven't seen either WandaVision or Ms. Marvel up to speed on that? They did do those little montages to get you up to speed. They got you up to speed with Captain Marvel. They got you up to speed with Ms. Marvel. I love how they brought in the aesthetic of that show that had that sort of, that Lizzie McGuire, early 2000s Disney teen comedy with the animation, stuff in there. And Iman Vellani, I think she's got a great future. She's just great. Her energy and just her performance was so great in that show. And she totally carried it over. I love her family. Her family was one of the best parts of the show. Just their whole family dynamic, and that carried over to this film as well. And so, in some ways, like I found the film fighting to be kind of a Ms. Marvel, almost more of a platform for her character. And then towards the end, they kind of wrapped it, or as the movie got into its second and third act, they sort of like tilted it back a little bit more toward Carol Danvers. And so the one thing, just to finish my original thread, is I felt it was a little weak on the recap of Monica's character in terms of like getting you up to speed on where she sort of came from. And she was so great, and her character arc in WandaVision was so great, having to play all those 60s and 70s comedic characters, and then playing her actual, character. That was great. So a lot of good character work. I thought they gave Carol Danvers. That was one of the things I will say I felt was a flaw of Captain Marvel, is they didn't give her a great arc. And, and people accused the movie, accused her character of having these Mary Sue qualities. She was just like this ultra powerful, just like from day one. And I think to some degree the movie was like that, enough of an arc, I feel like, in the first film, and they definitely grounded her character much more. They gave her thing that she did that she had to recover from, and so I just think they gave her a better arc in this film. And I think the comedy elements, the natural comedy elements from Kamala's family and Kamala herself, Sam Jackson's always good. The Blurg, is that what they call it? The Blurget, the cat. Yeah.
Oh, the
Blurkin, or whatever it is. I do feel as though they leaned. There was a couple of points where, because of Kamala's family, because of, there's always good banter with Sam Jackson and the whole saber stuff in space. There was so much natural comedy, and then the natural comedy that came out of the body switching and the teleporting, that they went for a few more jokes. And I guess if we're getting into spoilers for folks who haven't seen it, when they go to the water planet, with everyone singing and dancing and all that. I mean, I think it mostly worked. It was fine, but like there was a couple of places where I'm like, there's so much natural comedy just based on the characters and the situations in this movie that they didn't need to reach for gags. And I just felt there was a couple of points where I felt like they were reaching for gags and having Brie Larson, sing her lines in her princess dress and everything else. It was a little much, and there was some. I would say there was a couple cheesy moments. Most of their whole bonding thing on Carol's ship was, worked well, and their dance routines and the jumping rope and all that stuff. So there was a couple points where it got a little cheesy.
Yeah, well, I will say I did like. I think the two kind of scenes that stood out as kind of a little cheesy, at least in terms of humor, were obviously the water planet and the Flurkins eating everybody at the end. But both of those I thought were funny enough, and they didn't. Like, the water planet could have easily gone on and become grating, but like as soon as the singing and dancing started to get like a little bit, okay, this is getting too much, then they actually kind of wrap it up with a joke that he's bilingual and can just speak normally, which I thought was funny. And like, so just as it was kind of overstaying its welcome, they brought it back, which I appreciated. And then the Flurkins sucking everybody up, I thought was hilarious, because they were playing the song from Cats, the musical Cats, and everything. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, I think those were probably, if they had gone on any longer, I think it would have been a little bit too much. But yeah, the humor I think overall worked well for me. Yeah,
performances were good. I thought. What did you think of Zawe Ashton as Dar Ben, the villain?
Oh, well, of course, yeah. I think, like most Marvel movies, that's probably the weakest element. Maybe not as bad as some of the weakest villains, like Malekith in the Dark World, or I don't even know who is the villain in Ant-Man 2.
Well, Ghost. It was a little bit Ghost. It was a little bit Lawrence Fishburne's characters.
But yeah, so this kind of carries on the Marvel tradition of kind of a throwaway villain. But I mean, they did what they could, and her performance was fine. I didn't stand out to me as incredible, but it also wasn't bad or anything. They I think focus more on obviously Carol's conflict with her actions immediately following the original Captain Marvel movie, and that kind of gave good motivation to the villain and presented enough of a kind of, I guess, existential problem that it worked as a conflict.
Yeah, definitely. I thought her performance was good. She resembles the actor that played Ghost in Ant-Man 2, and I almost thought it was the same. It was the same actress. But speaking of, we just wrapped up our episode on Loki, and I think I think Zawe Ashton is Loki's fiance, or Tom Hiddleston's fiance, not Loki's fiance.
Well, yeah, maybe that'll be a future plot point.
But I thought she was good. And I think they at least gave her good motivation for what she did. And then a couple of things. Well, as it relates to her, and we'll get into the finale in a moment, and then some of the post-credit scenes, which I thought were the most enjoyable post-credit scenes that we've had in a while. But Carol's wrap-up, as it relates to her, and Carol's sort of big sin that she committed by, wiping out the Supreme Intelligence. That was a good arc that gave, Carol something that she had to atone for. I thought it was a little awkward that we didn't find that out until later in the movie. It just seemed a little jumbled, where I would have thought that they would have, when we first meet Carol, she's just in sort of this sort of normal situation. Her and Fury are talking, yeah, you got to go take care of this problem on this planet, and she's flying around in her ship. I think it would have benefited the movie to have been aware of this unfortunate thing that she did. So it made it seem a little bit kind of convenient, where when they brought it up, where they did somewhere in the second act, we learn about that. If we had at least had a hint of that she was kind of feeling bad about something she did earlier on in the movie, I think it would have worked better. The only other character thing I'll note, which I've definitely seen online as well, is, and it did absolutely strike me, when I first saw it, or is just Fury. His character in this movie. This movie is supposed to pick up where, at least in the timeline, where Secret Invasion left off. And Secret Invasion, he was this like old, decrepit, broken guy, and all messed up and depressed, and comes in, and then he brings his wife. They do kind of, they fly away on the ship together to go back to Saber. We meet him here, and he's just happy-go-lucky Fury, from the post-credits scene in Far From Home. And so that was really jarring. I mean, and I guess if you didn't see Secret Invasion, which I wouldn't blame you if you haven't, then it doesn't matter. You're just going to, you got no acknowledgement of Secret Invasion Fury. So that was a little weird, but I was fine with it, because I'm just like, the less said about Secret Invasion, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, that it is weird, because I don't know what it was originally planned. I don't even know if we could go back to even pre-COVID and see kind of the outline they were going for. I wouldn't be surprised if Secret Invasion was supposed to come after this originally, but then just due to all the COVID rearranging and everything else, it got stuck before. But I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe Secret Invasion is the first time they just go, let's just forget about that and move on. Just because it just sticks out like a sore thumb. If it happened after, I guess they could also say like, oh, it happens after, because there wasn't anything in Secret Invasion or in the Marvels that referenced Secret Invasion or needed Secret Invasion to happen in order for it to happen. In fact, it's strange that there's a whole scene of Valkyrie coming to take more Skrulls to Earth, when, based on the end of Secret Invasion, probably isn't going to be the best idea. So with that, I think they could go either way. They could say, oh, Secret Invasion is after Marvels, or they can just wipe it completely.
That whole thing, bringing more Skrulls to Earth, totally is disjointed when it comes to what happened in Secret Invasion.
But yeah, well, that's weird, because it actually works better if it's pre-Secret Invasion,
right?
Because then they're just filling the world up with more Skrulls and exacerbating the problem,
right? And I guess if Fury came back to Earth after the events of this film, then that makes more sense, that he may have needed a vacation or something, but I don't know.
Right.
Other thoughts you have? I have one more thought before we get to the post-credit scenes about the finale.
No, I guess I do want to emphasize the production and special effects, as we've seen a lot of scrutiny over Marvel CGI recently. So it was great to see. I saw it in 3D in a big screen, big format, not IMAX, but kind of adjacent. I actually didn't even know that they still did 3D movies anymore, but I thought the 3D was excellent and it looked great. All the special effects and stuff. I thought, with the exception of a few shots, anytime you do someone flying or falling, certain angles are going to look kind of wonky, but they definitely seem to make a point of improving the CGI quality a little bit. And then I just loved all the fight scenes and how they were shot, choreography and cinematography. So I feel like in some ways this is more of a well-made movie than even some of the older MCU movies. And people just aren't seeing that because they want to just hop on the MCU was dead bandwagon kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything And not that I would really, but I didn't see anything. All the special effects looked good to me, so it's good to hear that it seemed like this was much more consistent. Although, definitely like I can say in Quantumania, there was a lot of stuff that just didn't look great. But yeah, my last thought, just, and it's again more from a kind of a plot standpoint, is so ultimately when Carol goes back and reignites their son using her power, I'm like, she didn't think of that before now.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
and
she just came up with it and it worked immediately, kind of thing.
Right. And she had that one throwaway line where she said, I didn't think I could do that. I didn't think I would be able to do that. And then it's almost like trying to imply that she needed Monica to kind of scientifically figure out that she could do that. Definitely this movie has its flaws, certainly, but I would say overall it's just a very solid, just fun adventure. So now we come to, especially spoilers now, I think we said that already, but the sort of immediate credit scene, I don't even know what you call it because it was a tag, right? It was really a tag at the end of the film.
Right, yep.
Since the team up of the actual Marvels with Monica, since she disappears and is lost in some other dimension at the end of this film, and Carol is off reigniting the son of Hala, we get Ms. Marvel back on Earth trying to start her own team with some of her peers, and she shows up in Kate Bishop's apartment in New York City. Does she have a code name, or is she just Kate Bishop?
I guess she is technically Hawkeye or another version of Hawkeye, but yeah, no, I don't think they've made that official in the MCU yet.
So the two of them, it looks like they're going to get together. They reference Cassie Lang in that brief scene, so that's cool. Hawkeye is my favorite of the Disney Plus series, and I thought Haley Steinfeld did a great job with Kate Bishop, so that was cool. And then we get the alternate dimension scene where we see, what's Monica Rambeau's mom's name?
Maria
Rambeau, yeah. And she's there, and she is some character called Binary, who is, I guess, an X-Men, and I'm not familiar with her. Are you?
Vaguely. I know the character. I don't know too much. I guess she's associated with the X-Men. I didn't know that, but yeah, I guess I knew that her mom was some sort of superhero. But
the big, obviously, wow moment is that we get Hank McCoy.
Kelsey Grammer as Beast.
And that was really cool, and obviously, and wasn't there some little sort of drop at the end of the Marvels that sort of indicates that Kamala Khan might be a mutant,
at the end of Miss Marvel, they say that she's a mutant or something.
Yeah,
so there seems to be
some kind of tie in there.
Yeah.
But so those were two juicy, harkening back to the real juicy post-credit scenes we used to get back in Phase 2 and 3 of the MCU. So that was cool, but it also begs the question, to get into, the challenges that we do have with the MCU today. Is they just keep introducing more things and more threads, and like, how are you going to possibly pay off all this stuff? Like as I watched the Marvels, I was just thinking back to the Shang-Chi post-credit scene with Banner and Carol, and I'm like, that went nowhere, or it's going nowhere, or how long are we gonna have to wait? There's all, and then there's a post-credit scene with Charlize Theron at the end of Doctor Strange. How are you possibly gonna pay off all these things? Like, they're cool in the moment, and when you had the Infinity Saga, all this stuff came together. Now it just seems like we're throwing out things that we know are going to be great sort of fan service cool moments, but like, again, just how are you ever possibly going to pay all this stuff off?
That was, I was a little bit obviously it was great to see the Beast and Kelsey Grammer voicing him and everything else, but I was a little bit surprised that just out of all the things and cameos they could have thrown in there, that was very unexpected, to the point where I actually had known he was going to show up because I had seen spoilers prior, but I had seen some like rumblings that they were going to do Beast, and I was like, how is that going to tie in any way to Marvels? But I guess that it did. But yeah, no, it reminds me of the end of Eternals too. There was that post-credit scene with Harry Styles and everything else. That
Yeah. Oh,
doesn't seem
yeah.
like it's
Exactly.
gonna go anywhere.
Yeah, right.
That
Well,
especially seemed like it was nothing.
And plus, there's that sort of running joke about the Eternals, like, how come no one ever talks about that big giant thing sticking out of the planet? But it is what it is. So, and who knows? Maybe they do have a plan, but that definitely is one of the challenges or problems with the MCU right now. Is it just like pick a direction,
Right.
And pick a story, or don't, or just give us episodic superhero adventures, and don't worry so much about this overriding arc. But anyway, any other final thoughts from you on this one?
I don't think so. I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Well, I guess that's a wrap on the Marvels, and definitely, if you haven't seen it, we would recommend it. We think you'll enjoy it if you like the MCU. As we wrap up, just a reminder: if you do enjoy this episode, please do give us a like and a follow on our X/Twitter page at worldsb_podcast, and a like or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. It means the world to us, and thank you guys for listening. Got a lot coming up. Monarch show on Apple TV. I've started watching that. Enjoying that so far. Very not what I expected, but don't want to say anything more than that. Godzilla -1, the new Toho Godzilla film coming out. Some holiday horror. And I'm sure some things coming after that. Any other things we want to tease that we haven't hit on yet?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much covers it.
All right. As always, watch Lockwood & Co. on Netflix, read those wonderful books by Jonathan Stroud, and support us in our effort to get that show renewed on another streamer. And that is my plug. And with that, we will say goodbye to you all. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you on the next episode.